Welcome, everybody, to today's roundtable discussion on how to drive value for financial services with personalized learning. I'll be your host today. My name is Justin Seeley. I'm an e-learning evangelist here at Adobe, and I'm really excited to guide you through this important conversation today. Joining me, we have two standout leaders in the learning and development space. We have Hope Nolles, the Director of Learning and Development at Priority, a leading financial services company helping businesses streamline payments, banking, and commerce operations. Hope, welcome to today's conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, apparently my phone thinks that your name is Siri, so I'll be muting that for the remainder of today. Geez. All right. Also joining me on the call today, Beth, Director of Education and Development at American National, a trusted name in the insurance industry where she leads learning initiatives across agents, field leadership, and distribution. Beth, thank you so much for joining me today as well.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Now, before we get into the meat of the conversation, I want to level set on why this topic is so important. So, across the BFSI sector, we're seeing a major shift unfold. According to recent insights from Accenture and Deloitte, AI and automation are transforming, well, probably everything, from how customers interact with their banks to how employees do their jobs. But even as these tools become more advanced, customers are telling us something loud and clear, that they still want that human touch. So only 33% of banking customers are fully engaged with digital-only experiences right now. And I think that's a signal that automation without personalization just falls flat. And at the same time, companies that score high in customer advocacy are seeing a 1.7x revenue growth right now, which shows you that building trust and connection is still a real differentiator, especially when it comes to the education space. So how do we get there? Like, how do we bring that, up in the age of AI and everything else? Well, I think it starts with people, starts with reskilling, and it starts with more agile, personalized learning experiences that support both the tech and the human side behind it. Because no matter how powerful your platform is, if your people can't adopt it, adapt to it, or elevate the customer experience, it's not going to reach its full potential. And I think that's something we're going to dive into throughout this entire conversation is just, how we're handling these monumental shifts that are going on in today's workplace. And so with that, I'm going to kind of dive into my first question here. So we're going to start. This is a question for both of you. Beth, I'll ask you first. Let's start with the macro view. How is the industry behaving right now? Are BFSI institutions truly able to capitalize on all of the technology that they're trying to implement, or are there challenges in translating disruption into value?
Yeah, so from an insurance industry perspective, we're seeing some challenges. There's been quite a bit of discussion around what do these new technologies mean? What does it mean in light of compliance? What does it mean in light of security risks? What does it mean in light of our regulators and some of the different things that we have to keep in consideration from that standpoint? But what does it mean in terms of some of those unknown risks? As fast as the technology is appearing, we're seeing fraud happen also. So as fast as I might be able to use an AI bot to help speed up our claims process on an auto claim, I've got somebody else who's using an AI bot to make a fraudulent auto claim. So there are components of that advancement in technology that are happening on both sides of this. And the industry as a whole is kind of getting caught in the middle a little bit, trying to figure out how do we use the technology to stay in front of it and protect ourselves and still also not open ourselves up to additional unwarranted risk. So it's a little bit of, oh my goodness, it's all exploding, and where do you find that middle ground in the chaos of the noise and the constant change?
Yeah, I think that's something that, a lot of teams, not just in this industry specifically, but a lot of teams are trying to walk that line, right?
Yeah.
Because there is I hesitate to say scary side of AI, but there is this like hesitation and trepidation that occurs, and I think that we have to be very careful in how we implement
Yes.
these, tools and programs and things like that. So, Hope, from your perspective, are you able to capitalize on the technology that you're trying to implement? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the payment space?
We are able to capitalize on it. And so we've been able to do a lot of things like automating our underwriting process, being able to do
Oh,
those automatic beneficial ownership, KYC, all of those things so that we can get our accounts approved quicker, allowing our underwriters to focus on riskier accounts,
mm,
being able to embed finance across all different platforms. We have a very robust API that our sales agents are able to use. And so not only to tie into our proprietary products, but also other products as well. And so it has allowed us to have integrations, like we have an integration with QuickBooks, we have an integration with Wix. And so being able to have those integrations by leveraging our API has been very helpful for us. But with AI, there's risk, there's security. And so our head of security is probably very stressed out because he has to stay him and his team have to stay on top of that. From an L&D perspective, we get so many requests from our security team now to build out training than ever before. And just making people realize once you feed it into a bot, is there for forever. You can't delete it. And
mm,
dealing with a generation of people that are just coming out of college, still very young, and don't know life without social media or technology. They really don't grasp the how permanent it is. So that is the that is the struggle part of it.
totally understand that. I'm one of the generations that did grow up without all this stuff, so I totally
Yeah, me too.
I
Yes.
understand I understand the impact of it. I'm constantly telling the younger people in my family they should pay more attention to what they do online, but they don't believe me. Yeah, so I think, but that's the thing, right? Like we're taking stuff off of people's plates. Like you mentioned some of the automation piece, and I think that's very important.
Mhm.
Allowing our workforce to sort of take their minds off of the mundane maybe and focus on more like you said high risk or high priority or whatever the case might be types of situations. I think that helps keep our workforce engaged, and it also I think gives us a better firefighting mechanism, because I know when I was leading L&D teams, that's what we always felt like we were putting out 10,000 little fires a day when I really needed to focus on the forest fire that was spitting the embers onto the rest of everything else, right? So I think that's really important to lift some of that off, but also, like we talked about, with Beth, balancing it out, and yeah. The security piece is always a challenge, though, because those people are risk averse by nature. They have to be, and we always have to balance our desire for offloading tasks and speeding things up with their desire to keep everybody safe. So um, let's flip this over to the customer side of things. So hope I'll ask you this first. How are customer priorities evolving in this age of AI? And how is that redefining the competitive landscape, whether you're talking insurance payments or the broader financial services space or whatever the case may be? Like how is people's desire for this stuff impacting everything that's going on?
What we see is customers want speed, they want convenience, and they want
Mhm.
everything personalized. And so, and you have this immense amount of competition now because technology allows people to enter spaces that they otherwise would not have been able to enter into. So it increases your competition as well. But for us, our customers, they do still appreciate that human approach. They like that they can call in and talk to an actual human being. Versus having to go through a call queue or an IVR or a chat bot. Like when they use our chat on our systems, they are talking to people sitting in our office. They're not talking to a bot. So that is something that our customers do really appreciate. So that's the other side of it where AI, we use it on the back end. We use it to implement our systems. We have a digital adoption overlay on our software to help guide people on what they need to do. We have insights programs where we can show business owners how customers are spending and how their competitors are doing, and they can use that data and those insights to help their business. So there's a lot of things that we're using on the back end, but when we're dealing with our customers face to face, yes, they appreciate those back end products, but they don't know what's going on the back end. They really appreciate
Right.
that human approach.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that I've kind of preached ever since I started implementing AI, even on the teams that I ran before I came here to Adobe. AI is more of it should be more of an augmentation than a replacement or an outright, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't want
Yeah.
to outsource everything to AI, because I think you're right. I think people do appreciate that human element, the ability to feel like you're making a connection directly with somebody on the other end, you know?
Yeah, and especially when you're dealing with someone's money, we're
Yeah,
finance. So
I can
when
imagine.
when you're dealing with someone's money,
Yeah,
whether it's a credit card, a bank, or loan, yeah, being able to talk to a person is really important.
totally get it. Beth, how about you on your side of things? Like, how are people's priorities evolving? I mean, even with the internal stakeholders that you have, like how is that coming to pass today? Like, what's it look like on your side?
So with customers, we're seeing something very similar where they want that customization, they want that one-on-one personal approach,
Yep.
but they want it faster than what a personal approach may actually uh, allow for you to be able to do. So that is where we have been able to use things like a chat bot to help streamline the process. So where the bot that they're using may initially direct them to that right person, it's still getting them to a human, but it's getting them to a human, the right human, faster than a human would have gotten them to the right human. And I think that for us has really been a key is where can we use it to create efficiency that still gives them that connection and that human element that they're looking for while being able to create whatever efficiencies are possible. As far as the internal side of it, it's also given us the ability to say, okay, how can we take a moment and really rethink the way that we are doing business. So, a lot of our business has been historically built on this idea of you go to whoever your mom and dad bought their home and auto insurance from, and that's who you talk to because you know you can trust them and they tell you what you need to know, but you have absolutely no idea the words that are coming out of their mouth because they are speaking a completely different language. And that's just how it worked, right?
Yeah.
Nobody in the general public really understood what insurance was or how it worked. That's not the case anymore. Our clients are now much more well educated when it comes to insurance terminology and the way that all of that works. And that's because they have these handy dandy little cell phones that are sitting right next to them 24 hours a day, that if they don't understand something, they're looking it up immediately.
Mm.
So when they are doing business, when they are asking questions, it's because they've already gone and they've done their research. They've already gone and looked up information. So your conversations are very different. Your customer service is very different. And being able to upskill your field force to be able to have those conversations in a different way creates some very different kinds of learning and development challenges than what our industry has experienced in the past. And that's made it quite fun. Our team has a lot of interesting conversations around the behavioral piece of what we now need to do over just the core training of a process or a product or a system that was traditional for our industry.
Oh, that's super interesting. So I guess like baseline level of literacy and understanding in your field has kind of risen with the tide of technology a little bit, right? And that, oh wow, that's super. That's in a way that's cool though. You know what I mean? Like
It's
that's really
great. It's
interesting. Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I always said like, when I worked in a couple retail spots and things like that, and we always said like if we had a more educated base to work from, right?
Yes.
Because we always felt like we were
Yes.
building that foundational knowledge all the time. And so not having to do that, being able to jump in at I would say a mutually agreed upon point of understanding,
Yes.
then you can have more in-depth and high level or more strategic conversations with those folks. That must be
And
great for people.
being able to provide proof, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
in the past, you had to build trust in a way
Hmm.
that was more personal relationship based, where today I can show you 40 references by doing a simple Google search on my phone that shows you why doing A, B, or C is the smartest thing from a savings standpoint or from a risk standpoint or from a life insurance standpoint. All of those pieces, there's a lot of data out of there. There's articles, there's videos, there are nonprofit organizations that have done a ton of work over the last 40 years developing information specifically to support why the consumer should or should not do certain things. And all of that has helped support the industry in being able to say, this is why we have these recommendations. This is why we encourage you to have a certain liability coverage to protect you and the people that you love. It's not because they're trying to just increase a premium. It's because we're trying to truly protect you and the things that are important to you. And I think that conversation has now started to change. And I think you will start to see longer term a change in the insurance culture because of that.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, kind of sum this question up. I think what's coming through clearly to me, at least, is that the game has changed a little bit on both sides of this equation, and that even though the pace is accelerating in terms of humans adopting these new technologies, human interaction, human connection, still very important. And I think that's where some of the real work happens in both sides of this, the human connection part of it. But I think that's also where having a more robust learning strategy and the way that you educate, your people and your customers, I think that becomes a much more strategic conversation, because it's not about just keeping up. It's kind of about staying ahead of everything that's going on. It's about how these roles are evolving and then building confidence in a world that's moving faster than really it's ever moved before. Because, like you said, everybody's got a supercomputer in their pocket. Everybody's going to have these AI things around them eventually. And I think, yeah, we've just got to figure out ways to do that without, I think the important piece for me is without stripping the humanity out of it. You know what I mean? Like it's just got to be, it's got to be something that people still can feel a connection to, because when they come to places like you, because there's nothing really more personal than safety and money in this case. So I think that, it's very important that we still keep that human piece of it. But I want to kind of continue on this track here. I want to zero in on the workforce piece of it, though. So I want to start with you, Beth. What skill gaps are becoming more visible as this transformation is sort of accelerating? And do you see learning as not just a support function, but as a competitive advantage in this current climate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our ability to take a moment and think through what the eventuality is extremely important as leaders in learning right now. To take that moment and take a step back and go, where do we need them 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? That's a really hard question to answer. I think about, I have children that are in their older teens, young 20s at the moment, and the technology when they were in kindergarten, our school districts had just started saying they have to know how to turn on a computer before they can go to school. And I remember thinking, this is insanity. That was never a requirement when I was in school. We learned on typewriters. Very small school district, long story, but it speaks truth to power of to have gone from that to where we are today, that we have supercomputers in the palm of our hand. That kind of growth, where are we in 40 years, and how do we stay in front of that from an L&D standpoint? It's a challenge. So for our team and for our organization, our conversation is not around what do we build that fills that gap. It's what framework do we build that is agile enough to continuously change. And that simple change of mind, that simple adjustment to our strategy has really helped us embrace this idea of change as not something to be afraid of, but something to embrace and something to move forward with. We're no longer concerned about, oh my goodness, we're going to have to make all of these changes and adjustments to our current program over the next 5 years. This is incredible. We get to be part of the future. We get to be part of what that future looks like, because we are going to lay that framework of having continuous growth. And being able to say that and being confident in being able to do those things because the framework, the foundation is strong, I think is really the key. The pieces that go into that can always be adjusted as time adjusts and the technology adjusts and systems adjust and products change and all of those things change. That can all change in time. But the core framework, that core foundation has to be agile, because if it isn't, we're going to end up missing the boat or falling behind, and we will not be able to keep up with the change that is coming.
Totally agree. I think that, building flexible systems is extremely important. Gone are the days of the 3 to 4 or 5 hour course, right? It's all manageable chunks at this point. Hope, how about you? What skills gaps are you kind of starting to identify? Do you see learning as merely a support function, or is it a competitive advantage in your industry?
So one thing that have identified as a skill gap is just cross training. We have three main divisions of our organization, and if someone is on the phone and they work primarily in banking and treasury, if they see transactions for vendor payments, very large vendor payments, recognizing there's an opportunity for them to use our payable services, and being able to say,
Mm.
hey, we could probably save you money on your vendor payments, streamline the process, make it easier. And getting them over to the right person, not necessarily needing to be an expert on everything, but being able to identify those opportunities. And so for a long time, everyone has been siloed for in the specific group or team that they work in. So getting everyone on the same page with basic knowledge about all of our different products, and our tech stack is a big focus of our L&D team right now. We probably have 30 different products. And so there's
Mm.
a lot of information to absorb. And we're constantly developing new products, acquiring different companies. So it's a lot. And so
Yeah.
for us, that does give us a competitive advantage, because we contribute to a lot of that knowledge, and not only just from employees, but we enable our employees to then go out and educate our agents and also be able to educate our customers. And so
Right.
it makes us a value to the organization. They're able to see the return on the investment that they make in our team. But, I travel to conferences all the time. I'm constantly networking on LinkedIn with other L&D professionals. And so whether it's a support function or not, I think really depends on the organization. In my
Mm.
organization, that's not the case, but there are companies out there that think that training is just about compliance and onboarding. And if you're at an organization where it's about compliance and onboarding, you probably don't have a competitive advantage. So I think it depends on where you are,
Yeah.
if you can leverage that or not.
I would agree. I think that people who treat learning as a checkbox, not so much. People who create a culture of continuous learning and foster that curiosity amongst their people and all that, I think that is a huge competitive advantage for them, because a more educated workforce is a more productive workforce. It's a more engaged workforce. And I just, I'm obviously I'm an e-learning evangelist. Of course, I believe in education, but I really do. I believe that is the fundamental thing that we as humans crave, is like more knowledge, more tools in the tool belt. And the only way to do that is through learning. So, speaking of tools in the tool belt, I want to pose a question to the chat here. So for those of you who are joining us live, I want to get you involved here. I want to learn a little bit more about the tools that you've adopted, AI tools specifically, within your organization. And if you haven't adopted any tools within your organization, please tell us that as well. I just want to get a sense of kind of where everybody is right now, and whether or not you believe that this is a good path for you right now. Not everybody all at once, please. Um, I can give you some examples of okay, Copilot, very good. So we have Copilot here. I've played around with it a little bit. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think that it can be a really good augmentation to your workflow if you're in an office, and the Office 365 environment specifically. I think that's a really interesting thing to use. So a couple of Copilots. Okay, Writer Copilot. Okay. Um, I'm starting to experiment with what do they call it? The vibe coding things. Oh, Synthesia. for content creation. Very cool. I would love to speak more with you about Synthesia, just to see like how you're using it, what the feedback has been, and all that kind of stuff. Because I, as someone who creates a lot of videos myself, I've often wondered, is this a way to scale me uh, more more rapidly? But I also am very cognizant of the fact that, I don't know, like we talked about before, do people want to talk to robots? I don't know if people want to learn just exclusively from robots either. But I want to know more about it. Great. Okay. So we've got a few people using AI. I think, I read a stat from a study that I think either that we commissioned or that was it was very recent, that something like 90 some odd% of people have tried an AI product or tried to use AI, but only 3% of people feel they are mature in how to use them. And I think that's something to really latch onto is we've got a lot of people trying a lot of different things. Me in a given day, I will try 5 or 6 different things. I don't always get what I want out of them. And I think that's mainly because I don't fully grasp how to communicate with these systems properly. And so I think that is something that we can, as L&D professionals, kind of do as well. We can invest a little bit in AI literacy to kind of bring that baseline up a little bit so that our people are more confident when using these tools. So if we do roll one out, they won't be as hesitant to start using it and find the ways that it can help improve. Um, but let's keep it moving here. Let me go. There we go. So, Hope, I want to go back to you and I want to talk a little bit about learning strategy. And how are organizations reacting to the learning strategies that you're implementing? So at your place of work, like, are you seeing top down sponsorship, bottom up demand, a little bit of both? Like, what does that look like for you right now? Is there a zest for learning about all of this stuff from where you sit?
Yes, it is. We do have top down sponsorship. We have sponsorship from the top, and I'm fortunate that that has been the case from the beginning. Our team is still relatively new. It just started in 2020, and it spearheaded from an onboarding program that I did for our agents. But we did not have an employee training team. And so our team started then. But when we started, we didn't have a framework or anyone's brains to pick. And I started in the middle of COVID, launched in
Mm.
January, the office shut down in February. So mistakes were made. And so I did start out with bottom up demand, and I was just an order taker, and anything that anybody wanted, I did. I didn't assess to see if it was beneficial for the organization, if it was even a training that was really needed. And we probably created a lot of content that we didn't need to create. So now, in terms of learning strategy, we're a lot more deliberate
Mm.
in what we do and how we approach that, making sure that everything that we do is strategically aligned. We're an organization that's big on OKRs. And so our learning and development team is a part of people and culture, which is the new name for human resources. And so we have our parent objectives from people and culture, and then our child objectives from the learning and development um, space, but they all connect back to those main organizational objectives. And so I think that has helped our learning strategy tremendously. But with that being said, I tell my team, and I follow the same principle. We don't tell anyone no. We may not be able to do what they want, but we're going to offer them solutions. And so,
Mm.
if we can't build something out from scratch, what can we do? Can we help you write a wiki article for your knowledge base? Can we create a quick job aid? Can we leverage off the shelf content? We use Go One through Adobe. And so we have a content library of over 80,000 courses. What can we offer you if we cannot create something from scratch for you?
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting approach. Actually, um, I've said no many times when I probably could have said yes, and I could have helped in some way. But when you have a small team, it's very difficult. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know how many people you have on your team, but I've run like one, two, three-person teams, and when
Yeah.
you're resource strapped, it's kind of hard to make that scale. But I think, yeah, that's a really cool approach because at least they're walking away with something. You know?
Yeah, they're walking away with something and just provide, we will take a PowerPoint slide deck that they've created, which probably isn't the greatest, but it has the information and we can upload it to our LMS and they can take it as a
Mm,
course. It's not a,
yeah.
in-depth e-learning, but it's something.
Yeah.
Because their needs are important, but understanding we can't manage everyone's needs. And I understand having that small team. We started as a team of two.
Oh, wow.
I'm fortunate now that we do have 13 globally, but we started as a team of two, and I was the trainer, the manager, and the instructional designer. And it's a lot.
I've
But
been
I
there, my
think through
friend.
that process, I created a lot of systems to help me scale quickly and
Yeah.
systems that we're still able to use now, even though we're larger.
Yeah, you learn very quickly when
Hmm.
you're thrown into that fireplace.
Yes.
Beth, how about you? How's everybody reacting to the way that you're implementing training today? Are you seeing that leadership is bought in and excited about it, or do you have people that are bottom up coming to you and saying, "Hey, we would like training on this"? Like what's going on in your world right now?
Yeah, we're actually seeing both, and we're also seeing a weird third occurrence happening right now where we're actually seeing interdepartmental interest,
Oh,
where other departments are coming to us and saying, hey, we think that something like this may be beneficial, right? So, like our
okay.
underwriting or our claims departments,
Yeah.
things that they are getting common questions on, or they're seeing are a common issue repeatedly across many individuals or across many regions or whatever it may be. So, we've created some listening groups with our team where we're searching out that information and we actually are building content development schedules where we're identifying the gaps and actually putting it into development schedules so that we're continuously growing that matrix of education as we continue forward. As far as the bottom up standpoint goes, we are finding a lot of the time they just don't know what is even available to them. A lot of stuff's getting lost in the noise right now. So we're really trying to spend some time and focus on that human aspect of understanding what they're really trying to find. If we can better understand where the struggle is or where the issue is, we can often provide a resource that's already been built that takes care of the need today. And if there is truly a gap, it lets us figure out how to best approach that gap to truly solve for that gap long term. Because we have that focus on creating a framework or a matrix that's going to support development longer term, every day is an opportunity for us to fill the gaps. So that way we are moving towards that ideal, perfect education L&D type of scenario where everything is covered, but it's still access. If they don't know it's there and they don't know how to find it, it doesn't matter. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the bigger challenges that we have to constantly look at is as our demographics change for the people that are looking for the resources, we have to rethink the way it is structured or the way it is positioned for them to be able to access it. Our up and coming agents, the young adults, the Gen Zs, soon to be the Gen Alphas that are up and coming, they don't retain information like the older generations. They want access to the information right now, that they can
Mm,
go and look it up and do it right now, but they don't want to have to retain it. That's not how their brains were built. That's not how they were trained to learn. They were trained to learn to be able to look it up right now, have that resource right now, and do it right now. So we've got to be prepared for that transition at some point here when those individuals come into the workforce.
mm. That's really interesting. Um, So yeah, I mean, that is true because I mean, we used to take tests with pencils and paper. Uh,
Right.
so so it was flashcards for 4 or 5 hours the night before, and then trying to remember all these acronyms in my head for how I would answer these questions. So that's really interesting though. So they kind of expect that knowledge to just be
At their
accessible
fingertips.
and discoverable would be the key phrase, right? Because if
Absolutely.
even if it exists and it is accessible, if it's not discoverable in a easy way, that's a problem. And
Exactly.
I think that's where some of these tools can really help us with personalization and understanding the semantics of what we're actually looking for, and then trying to be more of a proactive resource as well. Like I think building more these agentic systems and these personalized learning systems that know more about you personally, know where you work, what your aptitude is, where you're likely to fall short. They can give you proactive ways to combat that, but then also making discoverability easier. I think that's another thing because they can sift through a lot of information very quickly and surface hopefully the right things. They don't always That's not always great. There's some hallucination that happens within the AI sphere that I still get frustrated with today. But I think ultimately that's what we're going to have to combat this necessity for instant gratification.
Yes.
I find myself falling victim to that even now. Like I'm just like I'll be in the car and driving somewhere, and I'm like, can you find us a place to eat? Within 5 miles of the road. And my partner is not always, let's say, shall we say, paying attention to me, or what, because I've been singing or whatever I've been doing to distract her the whole time, and she's just tuned me out. So I'm like, where's my dinner recommendation? you know and so I said something in the car the other day. I was like, wouldn't it just be great if I had like an assistant in this car that could just tell me there is a restaurant 5 miles off the road that serves banh mi that you would enjoy, like, you know what I mean, things like that. And I think that's we're getting sucked into that. And it's not just the younger generations necessarily. I think they're the digital first natives that are going to definitely drive the change, but I think we're getting spoiled now too, in certain ways. So I don't know. That's really interesting though. Let's talk about learning culture a little bit. Shift gears here. So, Hope, I want to start with you. So, from the payments perspective, what does a successful learning strategy look like across such a diverse and fast-moving ecosystem? I'm sure there's a ton of, ever-evolving regulations and things like that happen and all that good stuff. So, what does a successful learning strategy look like for you?
Yeah, so our learning strategy starts with first alignment, those OKRs, and then from there, we follow a strict intake process. So we do two training needs assessments. The first one is a strategic one that a manager or director will do to determine the need of the training. So that's where we decide if we're going to take this on, are we going to leverage other resources, what that should look like. And then after that, it is a design training needs assessment, which is handled by either the trainer or the instructional designer, and really getting into what it looks like. In that session, they need to determine what those learning objectives are going to be. And we do two different types of learning objectives. We do learning objectives that speak directly to stakeholders. So they're going to be metrics driven. They're going to sound very formal, very executive. But then we do learners learning objectives. And so that's what they're going to see in the training. And it's telling them why this matters. What are you going to be able to
Mm,
walk away with and do differently in your job? And that helps with adoption and learners wanting to take our trainings and not feeling like, I got to go to training, because we're telling them up front, this is what you're going to get out of it. We also ask every stakeholder that we work with, they have to help us know what success would look like. And before we ever start the project, we map out the 4 levels of feedback using Kirkpatrick and determine how we are going to gather that feedback for all 4 levels. And so
very cool.
that really helps our strategy be aligned, and make sure we're focusing on the right things and not all over the place. When you talk about fast moving, we definitely keep up with all the courses we have. When we create something, we put when it needs to be audited for updates. So, like in our industry, we know that interchange, which is set by the card brands, MasterCard, Visa, change every April and October. So we know anything that covers any kind of pricing or interchange structure, we have to update every April and October. We have different compliance courses and anti-money laundering courses that they have to take if they are in banking versus credit card processing. And so we have to stay up on all of those things. So some things we're changing, twice a year, some things we're changing annually, but we do have to incorporate in our learning strategy, really auditing our content to make sure it's up to date and they're providing the best information. And then for things that we can outsource, like compliance, like security training, like your sexual harassment training, we outsource those things so that we can focus on training that needs to be customized for our organization.
Got it. Well, yeah, I think all of that is super important. And you mentioned something, and I'm trying to. I had it written down, and now I had it remembered in my brain, and I forgot. I'll come back to it if I remember what I was going to ask.
Okay.
I had a question. I had a clarifying question, but I'll come back to it. Um, so, Beth, in your space, the insurance world, how do market leaders set themselves apart when it comes to fostering a learning culture? Like whether that's agents, brokers, partners, et cetera. Like what can they do?
Yeah, so every company is a little different, but I can speak very specifically to ours. And this is something I take really personally. It starts with my team, starts with me as a leader, and it starts with our mission. And our mission is to help all of our distribution grow and develop to be part of the growth of our organization. When we talk about growing and developing, it is not always just knowing the product or knowing the systems or knowing the processes or knowing the softwares. It is about becoming the next best version of who we are meant to be. It's a very human approach to learning. It's a very human approach to continuing to grow and develop in your career and in the way that you behave inside of a sales industry. We all know that sales is an extremely tough industry to be in. I don't care if it's which area of financial services you are in, it is extremely tough and it will test you in ways that are sometimes hard to quantify. But when our team comes in every single day, we have one mission, and that is to help everyone in our distribution grow and develop. That's it. It is really that simple. And if it starts with us, and if we keep that as our guiding light and we stay focused on that, it becomes very easy for me to have conversations with executive leadership about buy-in, about
Mm.
having conversations about why it's important to be engaged, about having conversations with our field leadership about why it's important to be engaged and why it's important to encourage engagement and why it's important to show up and why it's important to talk about development. And it's very easy for me to get in front of the agents or the brokers or our other partners and talk about the importance of continuing to learn and continuing to grow. Because as fast as our company itself is changing and growing and developing, the industry is changing just as fast. Technology is changing even faster. Our country is growing and changing as all countries are. Things are not slowing down. And the only way to stay in front of that, the only way to stay competitive, the only way to continue being the strong humans that we are and supporting the clients and our communities is to continue learning and continue growing. So when we talk about mission, it doesn't come from a place of we have a number we need to hit. It comes from a place of the heart. It comes from a place of we truly have a mission and a guiding light. And by doing that, the culture takes care of itself. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm just honored to get to be a part of it.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. All right. So you talked a lot in there about it's easy to get buy-in from people when you have this, right? So let's dovetail that into another question. And hope I remembered what I was going to ask you. So I'll ask you in just a second. So in the insurance space, like how do organizations like yours, how do you measure impact within this sphere? And are you measuring short-term versus long-term results? Like what are you doing and how does that impact, how you present it to leadership?
Yeah. So for those of you not familiar with the insurance industry, we love data. We really, really love data all day long, every day. So there are two buckets of data that we focus on. There are our lead indicators and our lag indicators. Our lead indicators for us very specifically are around the concept of engagement. We talk a lot about the active engagement, which is the number of heads that we see in a room or in a webinar or anything of that nature. The perceived engagement, which would be more your survey results, things of that nature. All of those are things that we look at for right now results that we can tie to, are we seeing the type of behaviors that we would consider a success for what is happening today? The lag metrics that we look at are the things that tell us how successful our programs are actually being. Are we seeing the increase in sales or the adjustments in profitability or the types of data points that we would expect to see in certain metrics, such as agent business practices or claim times or process times or whatever it may be, that tell us that the message has been received, right? Now, we could get into a lot of really nitty gritty specifics about what all those data points are. But what it really comes down to is, have we been able to identify the data point that's actually reflective of whether or not our training is working? And I think that is a challenge that is going to continue to change. And I think it is something that we need to be careful not to rest on our laurels with. I do think it is something we need to continue to look at and continue to think through, is this the right data point for today? I don't think it is something that we can say these data points stay the same. I do think it is a moving target, and I think it's something we have to be ready to change on a continual basis.
100% agree with you. I think, one of the things that I always struggled with was the fact that we measured, at least in the places that I've been in the past, we measured everything by the same metric, and then the metric never changed. Yeah. Even as the technology changed, as the way you presented information changed, whether it was a course, a webinar, whatever, like it was always like, very, very like enrollments, completions, very basic. It was very hard to get past that with some people. And that, we have to, because you have to look at the context of the training. What is it supposed to do? And then what the outcome is, it's going to be different every time based on what it's supposed to do. So I think it's almost like moving target is almost course by course, intervention by intervention, right? It's like different almost for everything. And so I think that you can tie that back to more broad strokes metrics and present that, more high level. But when you're talking about, did this particular piece of training do what it was supposed to do? Did it create the lift where it was supposed to create it? That kind of thing. It's very unique to the training itself. Yeah. So we have to be flexible with that.
And I think as educational leaders, we have to be prepared to make the argument of what is that time period, right?
100%.
Because not all of those metrics am I going to be able to measure today. They're called lag measures for a reason. And some of those lags are 6 months. Some of those lags are 2 years. Yes. And we need to be very careful not to make the assumption that those lag periods are the same. And I don't think we always communicate that real well. I do think we, as leaders in education and development, we can do better there.
Agreed. 100%. I think that we need to understand what is our expectation as a learning and development professional. Like, where would we expect to see this lift occur? And then we have to communicate that very sternly back to the business and say, we're going to draw a line here and say, this is the lag period that we anticipate. And we're going to need you to be patient. I know that's very hard to do, especially in today's world, but patience is a virtue. Hope, for you, I know you talked a lot about how you're very KPI driven. So what are the KPIs that matter most to you and to your stakeholders, and how is your impact being tracked within the payments ecosystem?
Some of the, key KPIs that stakeholders definitely want to see is time to productivity, NPS, CSAT scores,
Sure.
and change in behavior. We are really big on impact over effort. Sometimes you can put a lot of effort in and not have very many results. It's all about what impact are you making. And that is what is most important. And so when we're looking at KPIs and trying to determine, that is definitely something that we are looking at. And like Beth said, being agile in the data that we're collecting, and we do it at a course level. It's tailored at that course level because the impact is going to be different. If I am creating a training for a customer success team and their report card and their perform line is 75 average for the team, and they want everyone to be at a 90 or higher, that is what we're tracking, and understanding that we are not going to get to 90, probably not even in 3 months. What
Yeah.
is the quarterly goal? Do we want to get to 83? And then by the end of the year, get to 90, and forming that plan out. And we are very upfront with our stakeholders from the beginning. When we are doing a training, we tell them this is how long it's going to take. This is what that lag time is going to look like. Who on your team is going to be responsible to getting us the data when we come seeking it in 9 months or 12 months? And so being able to get that upfront lets them know, oh, this is something serious. I'm not just passing them off to take an hour training, washing my hands of it and walking away. No, it's a partnership. And I tell everyone, when they come and say they want to work with our team, we would love to work with you, but it has to be a partnership and we have to both contribute to it. And if you are not willing to do it, if you don't have the bandwidth to do it, let's circle back when you can make that commitment, because it can't just be L&D all in. You have to be all in as well. And that's going to change the behavior. It's going to solve the problem that you're having, and it's ultimately going to make you look better with executives.
I love that. I really do. Yes. I think the partnership thing is really big for me personally, making
Mhm.
sure that everybody understands this is a two-way street.
Yeah.
Because that's not often viewed that way. And
Yeah.
we are viewed more as like a content factory than we are a partner in helping employees grow or support tickets shrink or whatever the KPI is. We are not seen as a strategic partner. We are seen as the mechanism through which they enable whatever that is, right? And that
Yeah.
we should all start our own learning team, and I would really enjoy working with both of you. Um,
Yes.
I want to open this up to the audience very quickly, and feel free to even come off mute. You don't have to put this in the chat. You can come off mute, get on camera, talk to us face to face if you want. I want to know, how do you measure impact in your whatever you're doing? How do you measure impact in your L&D strategy? Feel free, like I said, put it in the chat. Come off mute. Talk to us on camera. Would love to hear about how you are measuring impact out in the real world. I put people on the spot. See, that's bad. I shouldn't do that as a facilitator. Um, while we're waiting for people to put some in the chat, I can just talk a little bit more about what I forgot earlier. Your take on learning objectives. Hope.
Mhm.
That was very interesting to me, because I got into shall we say, a spat on LinkedIn recently
Uh-huh.
about learning objectives. Um, Basically, there was somebody who wrote an article that said learning objectives are dead. I made the argument they're not dead, they're misunderstood and misused.
Uh-huh.
That we needed to differentiate between stakeholder learning objectives and learner learning objectives,
Yes.
because the way we phrase them is very high and mighty. By the end of this course, you should be able to. Oh,
Uh-huh.
really? Like we can't dictate what they're going to learn. We can tell them how we think it will impact their life, right?
Mhm.
And I thought that was a really refreshing take that you had on the learning objectives. And I'm just curious, like, is that something you just instituted on your team because you saw something wasn't working, or why did that come about?
Yeah, it was something that I instituted on my team. I always try to put myself in the learner's shoes. And I always say that I have undiagnosed ADD. Never
Mm,
diagnosed, did well in school, but I do struggle with focus, and especially if it's not capturing my attention. And so I always think about, what if someone else is struggling to focus? I also think about the fact that because we are fintech, everything is fast moving and fast
yeah.
paced, and everyone's bandwidth is short. So if I'm asking someone to come and invest 20, 30 minutes of their time, an hour, or 2 days, if it's a leadership boot camp, what are you getting out of it? And I believe in
Mhm.
showing people the benefit of it. And so that's what drove me to come up with those learning objectives. My background is very unconventional. I have a fashion design degree. I minored in business communication, and I also have a marketing certification. But taking all of those tools, I'm able to still use those in learning and development. And I think it helps me think differently than someone who was
Mhm.
a teacher and has been in education their whole life.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm an accidental instructor or designer. I started out as a graphic
Yeah.
designer. I know how
Uh-huh.
to run a printing press. That's what I was taught in college, how to run printing presses. Not that that's a super in demand skill these days. So I come by all of this by, happenstance. Um,
Hmm.
oh, we are running out of time. Uh, so I want to quickly jump to our last question here. So this is for both of you. So what are the core technology imperatives that you are seeing emerge in the BFSI, inside BFSI learning today? And how do you see AI specifically factoring into your future L&D plans? So let's go Hope first, and then we'll do Beth second.
Okay. For us, it's definitely scale and speed in a global landscape. We have employees all over the world, so having on-demand training is key because there's not a training team in every country that we're in, and being able to personalize it for the learners is important. I think there has to be a balance of AI and human. From a development standpoint, we definitely use AI to help us, but it should be a tool. It should not be a replacement for the person. And I tell my team, if AI can do it, why do I need you? So keeping that human approach, understanding, even though we do a lot of self-paced trainings, and I think those are important. There's still tremendous value in having a trainer in a classroom being able to read body language and see the deer in headlights look on someone's face to know that they're not getting it. So having that balance, I think, is really important. And it's this delicate dance of trying to do all of these things that we know we should do, but also, like I said, the scale and speed that we need to keep up with in today's market.
Very cool. Beth, for you, what are the technology imperatives, and how do you envision AI coming into your world?
Yeah, I think Hope hit the nail on the head. I think it's balance. And I think finding good technology partners that allow balance, because for every single company, it's going to be a little bit different. And that might mean one vendor, that might mean 10 vendors, and finding those partnerships and those organizations that you can work with that allow you to put into action the vision that you have. That's super important. All of us are going to be fighting these battles in different ways as we move forward because we have to, because none of us are going to have the same problems as somebody else. We're all going to have to be able to customize. We're all going to have to be able to find our own unique path forward. And that's going to mean agility. That's going to mean strong partnerships. That's going to mean people we can call and go, hey, what if? And those kinds of conversations are not always the norm. So
Hmm.
paying attention to those relationships and paying attention to the way that we build and grow together, I think is going to be important with an eye on the future. We can't completely focus on the future, but we also cannot get so stuck in what we're doing today that we're not keeping that eye on the future also. So there has to be that balance there, to Hope's point, and we have to be able to find where that balance is for our organizations.
Totally agree. Well, thank you both for a very insightful and very honest conversation. Before we wrap up, I want to give each of you an opportunity to share how people can connect with you to continue this conversation after the session if they want. Do you have any preferred channels or resources that you want to point people to, Hope?
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me, and my name
Okay.
is Hope Nolles, and I
Okay.
just put in chat. But yeah, definitely connect on
Okay.
LinkedIn. If you have questions, I believe in the power of networking and helping each other. I have people I reach out to all the time. So anyone, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Sounds good. Beth?
Likewise, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll drop that in the chat in just a second.
Sounds good. My LinkedIn is also in the chat. So, to our audience, thank you again for joining us. If you're walking away with new ideas or reflections, share them with us on LinkedIn, tag our speakers, keep the momentum going, and we will see you next time. Until then, keep learning, keep evolving. Thanks for joining us. My name again is Justin Seeley, and I really appreciate everybody being here. So, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.